Hey everyone, it's Jason. Welcome to an unboxing for Vampire The Masquerade Rivals, the expandable card game. So Vampire The Masquerade has been around for quite a while as a tabletop RPG. It's been adapted to video games as well as other card games. So this is the newest iteration of that by Renegade Studios. It's also part of the World of Darkness, which have other franchises. Commonly the Hunter one, like Hunter the Reckoning, would be one of the bigger ones. Which actually does have a crossover set with this later on. So what is Vampire The Masquerade? First of all, let's start off. This is going to be a multi-part video. First video here, I will be going through just kind of like the overall brief gameplay, not a straight how-to, but just kind of what the mechanics and what the game does. The next two videos, probably at least the next video, but maybe two videos, will be going through the 4 different vampire clan decks and kind of getting to know what they can do. And then the last video will be going through the city deck, which is like the communal deck, as well as the extra cards, the crypt deck. So just a heads up, or you can check one of those other videos, links in the description, if you want to just head over to one of those to see what's in there. But what is Vampire Rivals? So one thing I really loved about this game, or at least the concept of the game, is instead of just being a straight up head-to-head brawler type match like lots of versus type games are, or just which vampire is stronger, can do more damage, or defeat the other team. There is an aspect of that, but what the idea is you are trying to essentially take control of the city, whichever city deck you're playing in. This one's San Francisco, by taking your coterie of vampires and playing various cards to either defeat your opponents, complete your agenda. Each deck has their own agenda card. You have a specific agenda you're trying to do with different requirements. You also have prestige that you're trying to work with, which is kind of like your notoriety throughout the city, like how well known are you amongst the other vampire clans. And if your prestige runs out, you also enter the game. Basically, you've been knocked down status level. So it's also another way to lose the game. But that also serves as your way to pay for a lot of things too. So you have to kind of balance that. You can't just dump all your prestige into everything and then be expected to win, right? I can't just pay for everything, because eventually you'll run out of points and you'll lose that way. But yeah, there's other things you're doing. So you are doing attacks, but you're doing physical attacks, which are, regular combat. You do social attacks, which are more kind of like the idea of like you're hitting people like in like their status and wealth. You can do mental attacks. You can just emotionally break them down and get rid of them that way. There are ways to interact and work with or against other players. You can kind of team up. If you're playing like a 3 or 4 player game, 5-player game actually can go up to. Team up with other players to scheme, to maybe gain advantage. Like, hey, kind of like, you helped me out this time, I won't attack you next turn. Like, let's take out that guy. He has higher power than both of us. So some neat, interesting things like that. There's conspiracies which you can work against other players. Just besides that, even the different other types of cards, there are rituals that can be performed. There's summons and different animals. Every vampire clan kind of works their own different way, has their own angle, but what's also neat is you can mix and match all of them. So there's a decent amount of components in here. There's 4 pre-constructed decks. The San Francisco city decks. Occasionally over time they'll release new city decks. You get a little refresh to play, which is kind of fun. Then there are 4 different colors of leader tokens and prestige/blood tokens, which keep track of your money/health for your vampires, and 1 for each different color. I did say it's a 5th-player game. There's a different expansions that will add more tokens for that if you like to play with more players. Agenda tokens, which are kind of like victory points essentially. And there's specifically rival tokens. It's one of the ways you can win. And then there's also this special crypt pack, which is actually 63 extra cards you can get to then upgrade or change your deck. So it's some brand new cards, some extra cards. It's a really neat idea. So here's a bunch of terms. I'm not going to go through all of them, but it goes through a lot of that type of stuff. The big ones we wanted to kind of look at in this game are prestige. Yeah, so prestige are tokens and resources are your power of the game. You'll use prestige to recruit vampires, play certain cards, gain titles, etc. Spend your prestige wisely as you don't end up being easy prey. A personal supply of prestige, which is public knowledge, is reduced to 0. The game ends. When prestige is spent to recruit a vampire, you flip them tokens over and place them on that vampire. They become blood or health. And then, of course, blood getting right there is functioning their health. When a vampire takes damage, remove equal number of blood from that buyer, place them in the general supply. So this is kind of neat, is there's actually going to be, each person has their own colored token. And part of the reason for this is, I'm maybe jumping ahead into the game mechanics a little bit, but you start off with, there's, I think, like 20 tokens per player, but you don't start off with all 20 of them. You start off with 20 value of your prestige, but you don't start off with every single token that's available in the game. Some are in the general supply. Then throughout the game, various things will let you pull stuff from the general supply. You can actually grab other players' colors. And then there are various things that if you have to sacrifice or pay for things, you can pay for other people's colors versus with other people's tokens, essentially, as opposed to your own, because then only your color can go back in your supply. So it's kind of a neat thing, is you can almost steal other people's supplies over time, maybe limiting them that way too. So it's a neat idea of having these different colors. Yeah, I just read that, and it just says it right here. So it says, you need to collect blood prestige from the general supply. Grab only ones that match your chosen color. So it's possible that your foes might give you some of their prestige or blood. Remove your own tokens for spending your own. So I think they changed that, actually. They have done updated books. I just said that there are ways to steal other people's blood. So how do you actually win? That's the big question here. 3 ways. You're winning if you're the first player to reach your 13 agenda points. So every agenda needs 13 points. Doesn't matter what it does, how it works, how it gains prestige. There are other ways to gain agenda as well, but all of them have 13. You win if you knock out your specific rivals. So if you are playing a 4-player game, you have 3 other opponents you're playing against, but one is specifically your rival, who's the one you're going to try and attack and defeat. You can then work with the other 2 players, but you could always just, try and knock them out as well. You win if you have the most agenda points when a foe gets knocked out and neither win condition above is met. So again, this kind of goes to the fact that if you can knock out your rival, you automatically win. But if you know you have the most agenda points, you could knock out another player that's lower. Like, I'm player 1 and my rival is player 2, but player 3 has been knocked down a bunch by player 2 because that's their rival. I could go ahead and finish off player 3 and then win that way. So it's kind of a neat extra element to the game, is you can't just be focusing on one player. You have to be watching what's happening to everybody. If you knock out farther than your rival, the player holding the rival token gains 3 agenda points, though. The player who's knocked out, they're going to permanently set to 0, so they can't win. So there. And then setup's pretty easy. I'm not going to go through all the setup. This is essentially how it works, is you have your tokens, you have your agenda, and your haven, which is your particular spot in the city that's like your home base. And each clan has one, each player has one, which has their own special unique abilities as well. You have your regular deck of cards, and then you have your faction deck, which is just your vampires. So it's kind of a neat idea, because your vampires are in a separate deck than the rest of them. So if you need a new vampire to play, you can opt to draw from that deck instead. So you're not stuck hoping to get one. So it's never like, oh no, like I really need this character, I don't need that. So it's kind of a neat idea. And then the streets are kind of like the communal area where everyone go to play. So basically you can hide back in your haven, build up your vampires, and get ready to send them out. And then everyone can send them to the streets to do battle. and do various things and interact with each other. Then you also have your leader down here. So you have one specific vampire that is your leader. What you don't want your leader to do. Alright, I did miss this part. To knock out a foe, you must do one of the following. Cause their prestige to drop to 0, or defeat the last active vampire in their coterie. Vampires in Kapor are not active. So basically what that means is you start with one vampire in play. You need to keep adding more to your clan, or you will lose. Because if you don't add another one, it gets knocked out, you're out of the game, and then the game is over. Kapor is a special area of the game. Basically, if a vampire gets defeated, it goes off to a recovery zone. And then over time, it'll recover, it can come back. So if you can last long enough, generally all your vampires come back. There are ways around that. So there's different types of decks, there's different backs as well. There are 4 vampire clans in the base set. The Brujah, the Toreador, the Venture, and the Makalvian. And each one has their own different lore and reasons on how they play and everything behind them. And it's just kind of neat. So like going a little bit more depth when we look at their decks. Like the Brujah are kind of like the street gang characters. They use physical and ranged attacks. The Toreador are artists, club hoppers. They like to scheme, steal prestige, use social events. So they attack you out and oh, we're at the clubs and this and that. Things like that. The Venture are the tyrants and kings. They're all about policies. They like to play gaining power, using titles. So again, the middle two aren't really necessarily doing lots of the physical battle. They're playing on the other end. And then the Makalvian are madmen and visionaries. They use lots of mental conflicts and conspiracies and making plans. So it gives you some different types of gameplay. So the anatomy of a vampire card, we'll look at that in just a minute. We'll come back to that. But basically there's 3 types of attacks, or symbols. There's physical, which are hands, lips, which are social, and brains, which yellow, which are mental, and they kind of separate them by the color as well. We have agenda, builds up how you win, havens to the deck. We kind of talked about that, which I'm not trying to go full how to play. Just a quick on what you do during your turns. Beginning phase, action phase, end game. So the beginning phase, you are going to burn ongoing events in the city, do start turn effects, ready all your cards. And then return all your cards, vampires, to your haven. So all your characters always start in your haven, and then you have to move them to the streets. Action phase, perform one of 2 things. Draw a card, recruit a vampire, claim the prince of the title, play an action, or make an attack. So the first 2 say unhosted. So basically what that means is you just do them. You can draw a card, or you can recruit a vampire. To do any of the bottom 3, you have to exhaust a vampire. So basically, that is one of your characters performing that action. Doing an action card or making an attack. Obviously makes sense. Various different things to do there. The Prince of the City is a special whole thing that you can do. Is you can gain this card, it helps you get agenda quicker. The attack sequence, by looking at this, seems like it has a lot to do with it, but it's fairly simple once you actually break it down. If you're familiar with Magic the Gathering, and you broke it down by every single little step, declaring attackers, main phase, check this, it seems pretty long. This is pretty much the same idea. Pick a character, you pick your group of vampires that are attacking, who they're attacking, and then you get to play possibly an attack card down to help boost your attack. Your opponent gets to play a defense card. You flip them over, add up all your damage, check for stuff, and then see who wins. Do damage back and forth. Other than that, it's pretty simple. But when you do defeat or burn a vampire in your rival's coterie, so again, specifically taking out your rival, you gain extra agenda points. It's another way to up your agenda a little bit quicker. It says when any vampire is defeated, not burned, that foe places 1 prestige from the personal supply on that vampire, flips it to the blood side and places in the top horror. So they basically flip one of their health spots over. But that also means that every time one of your vampires die, you lose one of your extra prestige points. So that's also the thing. If you're like, I can build an army of all 7 of my vampires that I have, but every time they die, it's going to take more and more time to do stuff. Yeah, this kind of breaks down some more of that. So I have the Kapora mending step. I just want to point this out. So it says, when they die, this is, so during your turn, when a vampire on Kapor has a blood equal to the blood potency ready on them, place them back at the Haven. This occurs outside the end phase. They move to the streets and act. So during your end phase, it says put 1 blood from the general supply on each of your vampires. So only the first one comes from your prestige, and all the rest come from the general supply. Then you choose any number of your vampires you control, possibly including the ones in Kapor, so any of them, and you may discard 1 card for each vampire to heal them. So you basically can sacrifice your hand to heal your vampires quicker. This is definitely neat stuff. They also have an attacking space. There are sometimes humans that are part of this special SAD, Special Affairs Division. They're essentially the humans that know about vampires. They're trying to then take them down. They get to attack you. Otherwise, regular humans don't care. They'll just kind of sit around. And the step, during your draw step, you draw 2 extra cards. So you're going to get 2 cards every turn. And there's Prince of the City, which I kind of mentioned. I'm not going to go through. It's a big thing on how to actually get that and do a bunch of these other stuff. And I don't want to go through too much of all of that. Attack sequences. They do a good job of kind of explaining how some of this works. So basically, if you're attacking, someone else can exhaust to take the damage instead. So you can sacrifice a lower level character or someone that has more health. You get play cards face down so your opponent doesn't know what you have. There's some very interesting things there as well. There are schemes you can play, which are basically yes or no questions. You play them, ask the question, then everyone gets to vote with their prestige. Let me make sure I did say prestige. No, sorry, they vote with influence. Everyone gets to vote with influence on whether that should be accepted, yes or no. So again, people trying to maybe help you, or you can maybe offer them something to help you, to help you win this card, and they may or may not do it. So it's kind of an interesting idea. And then they also have conspiracies, which work in a similar function. Is you play a conspiracy card, you choose a vampire and record exhaustion. Play it face down, and then your player place 1 prestige token on it. Anytime during the game, you may reveal this card to foes you're choosing and invite them to join your conspiracy. So basically, you can ask other people to join you, put extra points on there, and then once you put a certain number of points, you can flip it over and activate it. Then it hits anyone who did not join that conspiracy. So it's kind of a neat idea. If you listen, you're like, ooh, I can team up with somebody for this, but the other players don't know what's going on. So I did mention influence. So influence is a special currency that is non-existent. Every vampire generally can play, just off the bat, can be exhausted to exert 1 influence. So throughout the game, through schemes and some other things, sometimes you have to do stuff. You have to generate influence. You basically have to exhaust your vampires to do it. So the more vampires you have, the more influence you have in the city. So again, this kind of plays that mental game, which is a really neat idea. And then you can get other cards that could give characters multiple influence to do stuff. So a guy could have 2 or 3 influence, so they're worth a little bit more to do stuff. You can get titles. They're like an attachment type card. Give your character extra abilities and stuff to do. There are also mortals and retainers. So you get to go to the city, fight mortals, you defeat them, you get to do different stuff, either healing or gaining extra bonuses for defeating them. There are some ongoing cards too that stay out and do stuff over time. That's the basis of all that. So the one other thing I do want to mention is forming parties. So when you go to locations, you actually form little groups, and that determines who attacks and who is being attacked. So if I have 4 vampires, I can make a group of 4, 3 and 1, 2 and 2. And the thing is that, again, it makes a difference between who can help block and who can help each other out. If I have any exhausted ones can't be swapped between them, though, so that makes a difference as well. But what can happen, though, is I can attack with, I can have 3 in one party and 1 by himself. I can attack with the 3. I exhaust one of those 3 to attack, and then when the battle's done, assuming anyone survived, I could take the other 2, move them to the 1, and start a new three-person party and attack again. This gives me more options to block with the other 2 or use their abilities. But it also means that if I have a party of 3 and 1, that the opponents could attack the party of 1, and that means that guy is no one to block with. It's just kind of an interesting idea there. And then the other kind of like symbol on here that isn't directly used are disciplines. So there are a total of 10 main disciplines, minus the Thin Blood Alchemy. And these are just kind of like little like things that your characters do. Every vampire has, I should say typically every vampire has 1, 2, 3 of these. And there are various cards that will mention you have to have this symbol to play it, or if you have this symbol you gain extra effect. It's just a type of different stuff they use. Like animalism has to deal with them dealing with summons and things like that. Protean is kind of more of like an attack one. Blood sorcery lets them do rituals. Just different ideas with that. Potent lets them do lots more. They're kind of like punchy. Obfuscate is doing stuff in the shadows. So very interesting things there. And I know I didn't hit every single little bump and hit on the road in explaining this game. I just kind of wanted to go through the basic idea. So the last thing I want to do is just show off a few of the cards just to get an idea of what the cards do. Ooh, I moved my camera. I have a giant glare there. So this is one of your vampires. They will have a red back. They're by themselves. And you can only have 7 at a time. So as more cards in the game come out, more decks come out, you can mix and match decks. You don't have to always have the same ones. But each different clan will have a different symbol. They'll have a different coloring. So you can tell them apart very quick. Plus, they'll say it right there. The top here is their health. The little blood splatters or blood potency, that's their max health, essentially. There are various things that reference blood potency. You can increase that occasionally, give them more health, and it does reference. Then it shows his basic attack. So Randolph Mars here has 1 physical, 1 social, and 1 mental attack. So he's not, he's in the middle, but you can actually do other stuff to increase it. So if he attacks, you pick one of them stats to attack with, versus like when we just looked at Hydra here, he has 2 physical, but he has no mental. And you're not going to say everyone always has a set of 3, but I think that's going to be fairly typical. Then he has his 3 disciplines, so he can activate cards there. He has some special abilities. If he's in a party, he can discard his title. This attack deals +1 damage to the target. And it does an additional 1 target if this character is a prince of the city. So there's a extra thing there. And there's our set symbol in the bottom. Yeah, so you're going to get different stuff there. So we do want to look at some of these other cards here. So let's look at a physical attack here. So we have kneecaps. Up in the top, we have that blood potency symbol, but it's black, and it says 3. So what this means is to play this card, I have to pay 3 prestige? No. So that's what's actually neat, is you don't pay prestige to play cards. But it means that only a vampire of 3 or higher can play this. So if I have a vampire that only has 2 blood potency, not their current health level, but their initial blood potency, they can't play it. So if you're playing lower level characters, they can't play higher level skills. So it's kind of that give and take. If I play a bunch of high level characters, they'll have more health, they'll maybe do more damage, and they can play more cards, but it uses my prestige more to get them out. And then the skull is how much damage, just natural damage it does. Shows your type of attack. They each have their different colors. Social are red, mental are yellow. So you can easily tell the colors just by looking at the cards. And then it says what it does. When I'm playing this, I can discard, add 3 to attack a second Inquisition. So this only helps me if I'm attacking that specific type of card. And you can kind of see where a physical attack does lots of physical stuff. A social attack, +1 to the attack if the attacker has a title. If the attacker is a prince of the city, does +2 instead. So it's hitting him more on like the social aspect versus physically like kneecapping him. And then a mental attack is the same idea. +1 for each character of the title in this party. And you see this guy is this clan's based around titles. So not all of them are going to be like that. A very similar type of card is if you're defending, you can play a reaction. So this will react to, and the reactions are always green regardless of what symbols they have. Again, so you can tell them apart quick. But this will show you what you're defending against. And it says deal physical damage to the attacker instead. Add this to the physical damage. So it just lets you switch up your damage you're doing back. So if they were attacking with social or mental, I could turn around and do it. So again, with our Hydra, this should be a great card because he doesn't have very high social or mental, but he could turn around and hit them for 2 physical. So that's a neat thing there. Where did I pull that card from? Then we have gray cards, which are action cards. Trying not to drop my decks here. So we have a bunch of gray cards, which are just your general action cards that don't fall into the category of your attacks or reactions. But they're going to have a bunch of different types. We have an unhosted action. So again, this is one that doesn't require you to exhaust a vampire to use. This is really just 1 influence for each foe in the game. So it just gives you a little bit extra stuff there. We have like the conspiracies, which we talked about earlier. Once it has 3+ prestige on it, you may resolve it during your turn. Burn target ongoing card controlled by a foe who did not contribute. I did not mention what burning is. I said it a couple of times. So when you defeat a vampire, if you just drop their health down to 0, that means they are defeated and they go to Topor. If you can burn them, though, they are removed from the game forever. And this is a way to keep other players' vampires completely down. There are a couple of different ways to burn. I was trying to find the exact. So aggravated damage. So burning is just called getting rid of something completely. But aggravated damage. Damage from sunlight, fire, claws, phosphorus rounds, and other sources of deadly weapons. Aggravated damage is not reduced by vampires' attributes. However, it can be prevented by shields and reduction ability. If a vampire drops to 0 blood due to damage, at least one of that damage aggravated, all the vampire's cards are burned along with all cards attached to them. So, yeah, burning them, a vampire, hitting with certain things, gets rid of them completely. And this lets you burn a specific target. This is a target ongoing card. So we just saw that last card. It lets you burn it, which removes it from the game permanently. So that's kind of a neat way to like limit what people can do by burning their stuff and getting rid of their options. We do have like the steams we looked at before. Influence, conflict. Should I gain 2 agenda? So you're gonna ask everyone in the game, should I gain 2 agenda? They're going to have to decide whether you should or not. If you're winning, most people are probably going to go against you. But the thing is, they have to spend, to do the influence means they have to spend vampires to do it. They have to exhaust them. So that means they're not going to be able to prepare for attacking or defending. You can at least get something out of that. Otherwise, other players might be like, yeah, that's fine. I don't care. Like, I'm not worried about them, or he's really low early on. It might not be worth wasting their additional resources at the time. And then we did talk about titles. Some are unique, some are 1 per player. So this lets you exert extra influence to attach to the acting character. You pay 1 less to recruit characters. So that's kind of neat. Makes your characters a little bit cheaper. I think that is... There are just some straight up actions. This is one that late night snack says for each of that symbol, which I don't remember these symbols off the top of my head. Says you're in your coteries. Your coteries are a group of vampires. That is the fortitude symbol. So each vampire that has a symbol that you have in your side of the gameplay, you get heal 1 on a character in your coterie or corpora. So basically, you spend 1 action or 1 vampire exhaustion to play this, and you can heal multiple based on how many guys you have. So that's kind of a neat idea with that one. Action ongoing, action schemes. Yeah, so that's kind of the different ideas of those. Then we're going to just do a quick look at some of the city cards. So city cards will have these blue backs with a different symbol on them based on the city. And lots of them are going to be events and ongoing. So every turn, you'll flip one of these over. It'll stay on for the full round of everybody, and it'll affect what happens. So if we're playing San Francisco Fog, it means ranged attacks can't be played in the city, in the streets. So this just limits what other players can do. And then you can have something like wandering the Bart tunnels. Every character not in their haven is in a separate party. So for the full round, if you send in the streets, every character is by themselves. So you can't do party attacks. So some different options there that will set stuff up. There are occasionally just event cards, which just happen and then go away. Shuffle all events in the burned pile into the city deck. So this just gets all your city cards back. There are also citizens, which you can basically, your vampires can eat. So yeah, if you attack this guy, defeat him. It says when defeated, you gain 1 agenda, and choose one to either burn them, get rid of them completely, and you get heal 3, or you can attack them and gain 1 physical attack. You can have up to 3 cards attached. So the citizens kind of let you kind of fight over them to gain some extra stuff. Now, there's only a couple of different ones in the game. It's just not like you're going to have, like, that's not going to be your main goal. That's just kind of like an extra thing you can do. Alright, so that is the basis of what we have. We did not look at tokens, though. Let's take a quick look at these tokens. I know we're kind of going weirdly out of order, but we'll just take a quick look at all these tokens. I'm going to zoom back out. So those are different colors and agendas. Those are all the same. And these are hidden, so your opponents don't know who your rival is. So that's the whole point of that, too, is that it's not player 1 and player 2 are always rivals. Player 1 could be rival to player 2, but player 2 could be a rival to player 4. And if you're attacking them, you're just constantly focused on one guy. Everyone's going to know that's your rival. But if you play it more subtle and you kind of play the field and do this and that, they might not know, and then you can strike a little bit harder. Except they're going to find out as soon as you do take one out and you get extra points, I guess. So it only works for a little bit. And then here's your prestige tokens. Black, blue, orange, and red. And then they flip over on the other side are blood. Very simple there. I think that is all the different stuff. Now, there are other types of cards we didn't come across. We didn't come across animal cards or rituals. Some of those that show up in expansions. But yeah, it's definitely a big thing. So here's the big giant box. The last thing I want to show off for this part of the video is, so we have 6 spots in there, our 4 decks, our crypt deck, and our street deck. And then you have dividers for all of these, so you can go ahead and separate them. Now, there's plenty of extra room in here, so I don't know exactly what the point of having so much room for each deck is, because you're never going to be able to fit them all in there. Even if you take all the cards from this and separate them out, I don't think it would fill them up. But maybe they figure if over time you keep buying them. But I think at that point, if you buy enough other things, you're just going to probably buy a deck box for them. I lie. I did not show off 2 of the last types of cards that I needed to show off. The purple cards, which are your agenda cards. This is, again, one of the ways you win the game. So this one's base of power. When this character in your coterie attaches a title, gain 2 agenda. If you reach 13, you win. So yeah, every time you play a title, but now there's only so many titles, you can only have one equipped at a time, so you have to either have your vampires die or find a way to remove them. The only title that can keep getting changed hands is the Prince of the City. And then we have Brown Moons, which are your havens, and then this one. So now each clan has their own set of kind of things they like to do. The agendas that initially come with them, and the havens that come with them really work towards those ability. But again, you can mix and match and do what you would like. So characters have one secrecy, which just means you can't attack a character in a haven unless you pay extra influence. You have to pay influence equal to their secrecy. So you can't attack a character at their base, it's just harder to do. Characters with a title in your coterie have +1 influence. Discard an unattached city deck marble on the streets to add a new card to the street. This just lets you cycle through the street cards a little bit more. And this is a leader ability, so your leaders all gain special abilities by having havens. Then the last thing we'll just kind of go a quick glance at is we do have the Crypt deck. So the Crypt deck is just going to add, might zoom this back out, 4 more different havens, so kind of like alternate havens, alternate agendas for each clan, but again, they're not attached to those. And it's going to add 2 more vampires for each different clan, so you have some options to swap these out with the ones that are in the deck. Then the rest of the cards are going to be made up with some clan-specific cards, as well as just some other extra ones. But what it ends up doing is, by the end of the with all the Crypt cards and all the cards and all the different decks, because some decks might share cards from one deck to the other, is you'll have 3 copies of every single card, unless it's a 1 per player per game deck. Then you might not have enough of them. So like it's saying that, so we have 3, 3, 3, 3, 3. I think all of these have 3. But like here we only have 1 of each of these, because there's 2 more in 2 other decks. And so it's just the Crypt deck rounds out, either has a bunch of brand new cards, or it rounds out the rest of the cards. There's a ranged attack. We didn't really look at those. Those are black. Yeah, so it's pretty fun. So the Crypt will just help you finish off your deck, gives you extra alternate cards, which is really fun, so that we have different vampires to play as well as more extra cards to swap out, maybe change up your strategies a little bit. Yeah, so long opening video. Hopefully stayed kind of jumbled all over the place, but again, this was just kind of a brief letting me kind of gush about what the game is. So come back if you somehow watched the videos. Come back, check out the other parts. We're actually going to go through these decks, read off all the cards and all the abilities. And then hopefully you'll come back and check out all the expansions as well. See you guys later. Bye.